It's really nice meeting you. Start off with an easy question. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Um,
Um,
When you're a kid, or at least when I was a kid, I had all these dreams about what I wanted to be when I grew up. It started with being a chef and then maybe a doctor. Honestly, I don't really remember, but at some point I decided I wanted to be an artist. I got my first job when I was 16 years old through my high school's career course. I got lucky. My internship was with people I already knew and I was already comfortable with. It was nice, but looking back, it was so different from the workforce at large. I got told all my life to listen to authority figures, and it made me so unprepared when those very same authority figures took advantage of that. My experience isn't unique. I've heard stories from friends and coworkers and family. There are thousands of people online posting about god-awful working conditions and even worse bosses. But despite that, people put up with it. Sometimes you just need the money more than you need to fight back. But it takes one thing to disrupt that flow and make you ask questions.
Yo, this new generation of workers are built differently.
this new generation of workers quite literally are built differently.
I don't think I've ever worked at a company that's been committed to cost of living raises. Not that that's common practice in the US anyway. One of the last companies that I worked at explicitly stated that we do.
All of my blue collar brothers right now are stifling a laugh that would just drain the soul out of that kid.
John Steinbeck once said that socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as an exploited proletariat, but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires.
The 2019 COVID pandemic left many without jobs and more at home. It was a rude awakening.
This week, 10,000 workers at agriculture equipment manufacturer Deere & Company made their voices heard.
Baristas stirred this up because they say the coffee giant is ignoring their demands and stalling.
13 locations are participating in this strike nationwide, including locations here in Cypress Park, downtown LA, Lakewood, Long Beach, and Anaheim.
Workers at this Starbucks location were well organized. They said they were frustrated by overstaffing and undertraining of their workers, and they ultimately voted 19-8 to unionize here. And this is part of a larger trend we've been seeing across the country recently with workers in the driver's seat. More and more workers, unionized workers.
The pandemic really brought out the ugly in a lot of people, and Starbucks is included in that. A lot of things went into place. Starbucks tried to pacify its employees by adding an additional $3 per hour onto people's paychecks, but that only lasted couple of weeks. We only shut down because it was a mandatory shutdown on Staten Island. So many things happened. The store got hit with COVID really bad. It took out 9 of our baristas. They basically were going back and forth with us on saying whether or not they should sanitize the store properly. Me and a couple of my other coworkers were definitely like, maybe we should unionize.
In May 2022, members of Starbucks Forest and Bard started to talk about unionization, leading them to contact Starbucks Workers United.
So Workers United is a union with workers in many different industries. We represent workers in garment and textile and laundry workers, and most famously now, the Starbucks workers. Specifically, we've been working on the Starbucks Workers United campaign for a little over a year now. This campaign has been huge for the union and for union workers in general because it's garnered so much national attention, and the general public seems to be really invested and interested in our progress.
As soon as we did that, it was just like a big tidal wave of more responsibilities because we had to go out to the city. We had to meet with our now union rep, Judy. We had to organize the store. We had to get people to vote. We had to convince people that unionizing was the right thing to do in that moment, considering what we were being put through. There was a lot of things put into place that really pushed the 16 people who voted yes to vote yes.
Unions really arise with the rise of capitalism. So as industry starts pushing people off the land and more people have to work selling their labor to big business owners, unions arose as a mechanism of self-defense by workers who realized that going to your employer and asking for a raise or better conditions individually was much less effective than going in unity with most or all of your coworkers. So unions really just arise out of this basic conflict of interest between owners and workers, and the lack of power of workers as individuals to bring about the changes that they want to see at work. And employer opposition to unions really battered the union movement from the 1950s, but particularly from the 1980s onwards, when Reagan comes to power.
I have come to speak to you tonight about our economic recovery program and why I believe it's essential that the Congress approve this package.
And one of the exciting things about what we're seeing today in Starbucks, Amazon, really across the board, is that young workers, for the first time in decades, are really taking the lead in unionization efforts. Most crucial thing is that young workers, but really all workers, understand that they're not going to be able to move ahead unless they organize and their coworkers as soon as possible. And so the cutting edge question is new organizing. Unions should be putting a lot more resources to new organizing. Unfortunately, most unions don't actually prioritize organizing new unions. And so that I see as the way forward.
So if you're someone who's working and wants to make a change in your working conditions and your working life, I think you should reach out to a union.
What do you do when you witness injustice? For me, I couldn't turn away from it, so I looked closer and tried to find solutions. I wanted to empower and inform people, but what can someone do with a problem this big? What Starbucks employees and other unionization efforts show us is that anyone can enact change, regardless of their background or social status. It's impossible to do something alone, of course, especially when tackling such large systemic issues such as workers' rights. But person by person, community by community, change can be made. It takes one thing to disrupt that flow and make you ask questions, but it takes courage and community to face the answers that come with it.